Okay, so over the weekend, I got a chance, an opportunity to go to Orlando Megacon in the Orange County Convention Center, which is the third largest. I thought it was second largest. It is the third largest convention center in the country. Chicago's convention center is first, and then Las Vegas is next to that. And they're comparable. There's a lot of room in that convention center. What shocked me when I was looking up the numbers, the San Diego Convention Center was like not even close as far as size compared to Orange County Convention Center, which shocked me. I thought San Diego Comic Con being the con of cons, right? The Comic Con that started it all. I thought that that would be the largest convention center, but I guess it makes sense. Orlando's convention center, I believe it's newer, and I believe they've had some additions and renovations. But what I noticed during this MegaCon is what I would consider the changing of the guard, and I'll deal with that a little bit. I want to deal with my overall experience at this con. So the atmosphere was actually extremely good. There were geeks of all stripes. I got into multiple conversations waiting in line. Me and my youngest son went and we enjoyed ourselves. There was a lot of people there, a lot of people there. I got to see Marco Checchetto, who draws Ultimate Spider-Man. I didn't get the opportunity to talk with him. He's really busy, and I definitely understood. I got a chance to meet the Rippaverse crew, everybody from Eric July, India Andrew, Brandon, Caro, the Saska sisters. Um, I got to meet Ryan Kinley, a lot of the Geeks and Gamers squad. It was amazing. I got to meet one of the artists for Achromatic Chronicles. I think he did Blue Engram. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I'm definitely going to order that book, Lord willing. He gave me the premise and a breakdown of what the book is. And I thought, man, so I believe it is a children's story. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I don't think it is only for children, if that makes sense. I think the way it's laid out, anybody can read it. It's just an overall good story. And when he explained to me what the story was, I was like, oh man, I think I might actually have to buy this. I didn't want to initially, not because I thought it was bad. I just thought it was primarily a children's story, but I discovered at MegaCon that that is not the case. Okay, so the changing of the guard that I was mentioning. So there was a section, like an official section for, you know, everything Star Wars. And there were people there. I'm not going to make it seem like it was not a crowd there, but the crowd for Star Wars Theory, that was one of the longest lines the entire Saturday, the entirety of the day. At first, me and my son didn't know what the line was for. And we kept telling ourselves, so we got to the Rippaverse booth. We went to the Geeks and Gamers panel, which was amazing. It was definitely awesome. Energetic. Those dudes are super energetic, and I like it. We went back down, went back to the Rippaverse booth so I can speak with Eric July, which was a super enjoyable experience. Man, talking to that dude, I sometimes wish the people who have complete disdain for him would actually go and just actually talk with him and see if you might change your opinion. Because this is what I think. We see a lot of personalities online. Look, when I'm talking into this camera, I'm sharing my opinions. But if you think who I am as a person is only what you see on these videos, then you would be sadly mistaken. If you met me, you'd probably get all types of different varying things that you don't see on these videos. And I think because many people have strong opinions online, because let's keep it real, the only way you get across to people sometimes is strong opinions. I think we have various examples of that. If you know anything about, I'm gonna say the ghetto and hip hop culture. You might have heard of Charleston White. Charleston White, he started out as like a real deal, and I think he still is a real deal, down to earth community activist, and he didn't get much traction. As soon as he started doing, I'm gonna keep it real, rage bait kind of stuff, man, the dude blew up. I know right now, if what I did was rage bait, like I could rage bait right now, just start rage baiting every day, and I would get tons of views. That's not my thing. I don't have the energy for that. I think I would get headaches every day if I did that. I'm more of a nuanced and calm kind of person. I like what I like. What I don't like. And I'm not really visceral about that. But here's the thing. If you talk to me on a person to person basis off of YouTube and off of social media, you would see a lot more passion towards certain issues. But really and truly, I don't have the energy to do that constantly on YouTube. And there's enough of that. If you want that, there's people you can go get that from. And I think there is a space for that. Anyway, I digress. Getting back to my original point, speaking with the Saska sisters was amazing. They are super duper uber nice. Like, you have no idea just how nice these ladies are. It is pretty incredible how nice they are. I wasn't necessarily surprised because I've seen them interact with people in different videos, and you can tell this is just, they really love this. It seems like everybody at that booth really loves this. Seeing the OG artists, I got to see Todd McFarlane up close and personal. I didn't wait in line, did not get an opportunity to talk to him. And I get it. A lot of these mainstream artists and creators, you pay a lot of money to talk to them. Look, their time is precious. Todd McFarlane, his line, I think, was one of the longest lines consistently all day long Saturday, which I think Saturday is the busiest day of the con. I think Thursday is like, some people trickle in, still a lot of people, people coming in, seeing what's going on. Friday, I think, is the big buildup, and Saturday, it was jam packed. We got there super early. I want to say like 2 hours before it opened, got a good parking spot, got in the building, waited in line for about an hour. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is because I knew, look, a lot of people don't understand how much the Rippaverse is loved by people. While we were waiting in line to get into Megacon, there were people commenting on our shirts. We were talking, about the Rippaverse. When we went to the booth, and later on throughout the day, people would see our shirt and ask us where the booth was. While we were standing in line to talk to Star Wars Theory, there was probably at least a dozen people, maybe more, that were asking us, hey, where's the Rippaverse booth? There is legitimate excitement. There's a person that commented online on a video that on X that said that it looks like there wasn't many people there. And I don't think people understand. Like, if you saw that line, it was steady the whole time. At no point did the line just diminish, giving you an opportunity to just get in and out. Now, we got there early, so we got to like, I was standing there at the Saska sisters table before they even came in, waiting to talk to them. They are by far right now my favorite writers at the Rippaverse. What they did with Yaira for me was extremely exciting. I love that book. I love that book. Gooding, oh man, that's another one. So many of the books are good. And look, Saoirse, that introduction to Saoirse in Rippazine #2 was absolutely masterful. It was masterful. It was such a fun story that when I was done, I said to myself, they can't leave this way. This absolutely positively has to be an ongoing series with more than just this Rippazine. It has to be. There's no way they can just get away with doing just this. So I read an article about what happened at San Diego Comic-Con a few years ago during the SAG-AFTRA strike and how it affected San Diego Comic-Con. And this is why I say there's a changing of the guard. If you saw the fan engagement and the lines for some of these streamers, like independent creators and streamers on YouTube, there was a gym brand there that my youngest son follows. They had a deadlift competition and everything that he participated in called, I want to say Civil Regime. I might be getting that wrong. Forgive me if I'm getting it wrong, but they were there. Look, there was so many different things there. And so this is why I say there's a changing of the guard. I think if there's ever another SAG AFTRA, believe is how you say that, strike, they will have shot themselves in the foot, because it is my guess that during that strike at San Diego Comic-Con, and I believe I heard somebody mention this, it became more of a comic book and fan focused event, which is what it was initially. Now, there's nothing wrong with the celebrities showing up that participate in, bringing some of our beloved IPs to the silver screen. I have no problem with that. But I think there's a changing of the guard in the sense, I got the feeling that people were more interested in seeing and meeting some of these independent personalities than they were the major names. I walked over to the celebrity side of the house and it was definitely packed. I'm not telling you that the independent side got the same exact lines, but man, I'm telling you, those lines it was absolutely, positively packed, hands down. And I was just like, man, this is crazy. This is incredible that this is this way. I enjoyed the fact that a lot of the mainstream artists were, it seems like they were really engaged with their fans there. I saw Marco Checchetto talking to a gentleman that brought his art to show him, and they were having a good conversation. And I was like, man, this is actually dope. Seeing Todd McFarlane sign, and I'm gonna tell you, as long as his lines were, because I was kind of paying attention, he was sitting down and he was, signing autographs and talking to people, and it seemed like he was truly engaged. Obviously, I didn't get to talk to him, so I don't know. I didn't get a chance. I'm gonna have to look online and find the video of the panel. There was a panel with Todd McFarlane and Frank Miller. We were waiting in line to see Star Wars Theory, and that line, it never gave. It never gave. I'm telling you, it was crazy. So we didn't get a chance to see that panel, but I'll watch it online. I'm glad I got a chance to see the Geeks and Gamers panel. They had a lot of good things to say, a lot of differing opinions about the new media versus the old media. I did not go to the fan meetup at Universal. I'm not gonna lie, I was super. We got there at 8:30. We got in the building, I want to say at 8:30, and we didn't leave until around 6:45. I think it was over at 7:30. And we walked to the car. By the time I got back to the car, I want to say it was like 7:10. I was like, if I try to make it to this fan meetup, I'm gonna be pooped. And I don't live too far, that far from the. I was like, man, I got to get up to go to church. I'm not gonna try to do that. Maybe next time. Since I've already met, or since I met Eric July, at this event, maybe Lord willing, if they're at the next one, I'll go to that fan meetup, maybe show up a little later, or maybe just show up specifically to go to the fan meetup. Who knows? We'll see how that works out. You never know. I'm nobody's promised tomorrow, so if God allows, that's what I'll do, but who knows what'll happen between here and there. But the changing of the guard, I think, is so evident. I think it is hard to it's hard for you to not recognize. So I was talking to NDA Andrew, and I was also talking to Brandon and the Saska sisters about the first Megacon that the Rippaverse showed up to, and they had a much smaller section. Their section was a pretty nice size. I mean, comparatively, so was Star Wars Theory. I mean, they had some big sections, and they needed them. They needed every bit of that space, and they probably need more, to be honest with you. But they said last year they gave them a smaller space. They didn't think they would need as big of a space. Then they complained about the lines. They said they complained about the lines this year as well, which is crazy. It is crazy. It's super crazy. So you know, I think that is indicative of a shift in culture and the the power being handed back to the fans. And I think that's being borne out in the mainstream. I know some people have completely given up on the mainstream and they think it's all trash. I don't agree. I don't agree. I don't think DC is over. I don't think Marvel is over. Do I think things have changed? Absolutely. Do I think they necessarily have the fan confidence they once did? No, they don't. But I don't think they're going away. Look, there's ebbs and flows. At one moment, this person is on the top. The next moment, this other person is on the top. I don't think that one company will just stay on top and it'll be that way forever. I think I've talked about this before. Nintendo was on top of gaming. Sega came along, challenged them a little bit. They were still on top. And then Sony came along and unseated Nintendo. You had Sega Saturn, didn't really do too well. Dreamcast really didn't do too well. Nintendo 64 did well. GameCube did well, but didn't do as well as the PlayStation. Xbox came along and it looked like it was really, grabbing a huge portion of the audience. Sony just maintained their position. And it looks like Nintendo might be coming back to encroach on that and regain the crown. I don't know. I'm not saying they will, but I said that to say there's ebbs and flows. There's things that go back and forth. And I think you do have signs that Marvel is paying attention to what fans want. I think you see that in Ultimate Spider-Man and some of the Ultimate comic books. I think Absolute Batman is great. There's a lot going on there. Of course, you got a rock star in Scott Snyder, and Nick Dragotta's art is fantastic for that book. His art is just fantastic in general. I'm enjoying it. These are super enjoyable stories, like really enjoyable. And they just give you what you want as a fan, an enjoyable comic book. So I don't think they're going anywhere, but I think there is space and room for other people to come in here and take up more space. I'm waiting for another company, another independent company to come along and to add another a notch in that belt of independent comic books. I think I've mentioned Ghost Machine enough times that you guys know I'm a huge fan of what Ghost Machine is doing. I think I heard I was listening to Thinking Critical, and I believe he said that Rook Exodus, that book is going to take a 6-month hiatus. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe somebody's having some family issues. I definitely understand that. And to their credit, I would rather if an artist or writer is having some family issues, I would rather them say, "Look, we're going to take a couple months off, deal with these issues," versus changing teams in the middle of a book. I personally don't like that. I know a lot of major comic book publishers do that. I get it, but I don't like it. I would much rather just put the book on hiatus, come back when you can come back, and release some good stuff. And maybe they're just taking some time to build out the story more, which I have no problem with that either. But it was definitely huge. And from an announcement was made at Megacon, and I've been going back and forth trying to get the numbers on this. Allegedly, Megacon is now the largest comic book and geek convention in North America. I don't know if that's true. I'm seeing conflicting reports. I'm seeing some say that there's a con in Chicago that's bigger. Of course, its convention center is bigger. There's a report saying that there was 210,000 people that showed up to Orlando Megacon. And then there's another report that says 160,000. At any rate, that's putting it in a range where it is bigger than San Diego Comic-Con. That's a huge deal. That's a huge deal. And here's the thing, the space that they had. So when you entered MegaCon, there was a huge space for ticketing and badging and all of that. And that space, I imagine that space is going to be taken up more and more by vendors, because there was a I don't want to say huge, but there was a big food court where you can buy food. I think that's going to be shortened and maybe moved outside or something like that. I believe that's going to happen because just from what I read, MegaCon has expanded exponentially from just 3 or 4 years ago. My son was telling me he went in, I want to say in 2021, right after the pandemic. And he said it was a decent size, but he was like, Dad, this is so much bigger than that first one. And the first, and or not the first one, but that one. And I believe there was reportedly like 130,000 people or something like that. And this is after the pandemic. And their report, at a minimum, it seems like consistently the reports I've read, at a minimum, there was 160,000 people. And like I said, I keep hearing this report back and forth about 180 and 210,000. I don't know if any of that is going to be changed, if they're going to give like an overall report at some point. But it was such an enjoyable experience. We had some conversations with, I had a very good conversation with a gentleman that just got into comic books, and his entry point was Invincible. He had never read comic books. He appeared to be maybe in his late 20s, maybe like 28 or 29. And so I recommended him some books, and I told him, look, if you try to get into majors, because he entered in the independent space, which was smart on his part. I don't know if that was on purpose, but definitely smart on his part. So I told him, here's the books that you probably want to read if you're interested in Marvel and DC. I told him, don't try to keep up sequentially. You'll never keep up. There's multiverse things and all kind of stuff, but there are definitely stories that you would probably like. And one of the stories I recommended was Batman Court of Owls. I said, if you're interested in DC, if you love these independent books and you want to try out the majors, just stick to little different story arcs here and there from the majors and you'll do well. But if you try to, go from the beginning and follow everything, you'll get lost. And I recommended him, Comic Storian, rest in peace, Comic Storian. And I also recommended to him Comics Explained. I was like, their videos are arguably, in my opinion, the best, hands down. If you're new and you're just trying to get raw comic book history, Comic Storian and Comics Explained, those two channels are the best channels. You can consume, you can learn, I would say in a few months, you could probably learn at least 40 or 50 years of comic book history in 2 or 3 months and really be able to retain a lot of it and work your way around a lot of these stories with ease. Their channels are magnificent for that. I'm glad they do that. They're like the librarians of comic book history. Those two channels right there are definitely for geeks. They are the cream of the crop, and that's just my opinion. So yeah, Megacon was definitely an experience. I always wanted to go to San Diego Comic-Con because it's the con that started it all, right? But I'm gonna be honest with you. I live in Florida and not too far from Orange County Civic Center. And MegaCon is big enough that I don't really feel the need to spend my money and go to California to see San Diego Comic-Con. And this is what I wonder. I wonder at what point are Marvel and DC going to concede and say, you know what? I think we need to show up to MegaCon. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Maybe they'll abstain. Maybe they have some deal with Comic-Con, both New York and San Diego Comic-Con. I don't know. But I know this thing was big enough that it can't be avoided. Like when I tell you the crowds were massive, it took us, when we left, the crowds were so massive. It took us a good hour, 45 minutes to an hour just getting away from the Civic Center because there were so many cars and so many people. Even it wasn't annoying. Very orderly. Everything was done very orderly. I know some people said that there was like a lot of chaos last year, the year before. And look, you get tens of thousands of people, 100,000 plus people. There's going to be some degree of chaos. You're not going to be able to keep all of that in order, but it was fairly orderly. There was a semi-car show in the front of Comic-Con, in the front of the Orange County Civic Center, where some people brought their cars out that had, different anime and cartoon themes. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Like I said, overall, this was a very if okay, so this is just my opinion, and to some of you, this might be a wild take because San Diego Comic-Con is the con of cons. But if I had to choose after this experience, if I had to choose living, okay, and this all depends on where you live in the US, right? Like if I lived in Arizona or like New Mexico, if I lived in like El Paso, closer to New Mexico, if I lived in Vegas, I would probably go to San Diego Comic-Con as close. But if you live like closer to the center east coast of the country and you live up north, I would just go to Megacon. I'm keeping it real with you. I would just go to Megacon. You could probably find cheaper places. You don't have to stay in Orlando. A lot of people don't realize like the Daytona area is not that far of a drive from Orlando. You could stay there. Yeah, it's about an hour 45 minutes. Not an hour 45 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour 20 depending on traffic, and there's always traffic in Orlando. You get around I-4, yeah, you get around I-Drive, yeah, that traffic is ridiculous. So, but it's not so long that it's a drudgery. And there's things to do in all of these areas. So again, if I had to choose, man, I would choose MegaCon over San Diego Comic-Con. And I never thought I would say that. Going to MegaCon, this was my first time going. And again, I've always wanted to go to San Diego Comic-Con, but one thing or another, it's always either work or just the expense of buying the plane tickets, then the tickets for the con, and you have to get those tickets well in advance. Well in advance. They sell out quick. And I have a sneaking suspicion that MegaCon is going to get the same way, where if you don't get those tickets early enough in advance, you are going to be sorry out of luck. I think that's coming, but that's what I would do. I would go to Orlando MegaCon over San Diego Comic-Con if I had to choose for various reasons. The big names were at MegaCon, really big names. The whole crew of The Flash was there. Steve Downs was there. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, the voice of Master Chief. They had a panel with a bunch of different Supermen there, Dean Cain being one of them. Frank Miller, legend. Todd McFarlane, legend. Marco Checchetto, I would say, if not a legend in the making. And there was a lot of other artists there. You can check online and see who all was there. But there's a lot of celebrities there. Like it wasn't a small rinky-dink event. And if you've never seen the Orange County Civic Center, when you get off of I-4 and you drive past this Civic Center, it is massive. Massive. Like, unless you live in Chicago, where that Civic Center is, or Vegas, I don't think you understand how massive it is. I think Orange County Civic Center is like 2.1 million square however they quantify that. Let me see how big it is. I'm going to look it up right now because I looked it up earlier today, the size, and I was just like, wow. So let me look up. I'm going to go to Chat GPT is so easy to use. Okay, what are the 3 largest convention centers in the United States, and what is their actual size? I'm kind of learning how to ask ChatGPT certain questions so it'll get specific. Okay, so I guess Orange County is oh no, it's number. I wonder why it listed as number 2, but Vegas is bigger. Anyway, so McCormick Place in Chicago, 2.6 million square feet of total exhibition space. Orange County, 2.1 million square feet of total exhibition space, and Las Vegas Convention Center, 2.5 million square feet. And the closest one to them, because when I looked at the list, you go from that to like down to 1.1 million, and then 900 something thousand. And I think, let's see, how big is the San Diego Convention Center? Let's see. It's probably going to shock you. 615,700 square feet of exhibit space, and 2.6 million feet of overall space. So it does have big overall space, but the exhibition space, that's what's crazy. That's crazy. Like, that's nuts. So I don't know what Orange County Civic Center's overall space is. I'll have to look that up later, but it's big. Like, it's the first time I saw it, I was going to another event next door, and I'm passing this place, and I'm just like, bro, this is crazy. I was like, this is absolutely nuts how big this place is. At any rate, I had such an enjoyable time meeting all the people there, talking with all the people, having conversations with random people in line about comic books and games and shows. It was a great time to be a geek on Saturday.